sleeps at someone else's home. He sleeps on the couch. You could see his phone plugged in on the ottoman, like anyone else would put their stuff down. And this poor young man is awoken from a slumber and given no opportunity to survive, to live. And so we're grateful that the gun organization, the caucus, has recognized that. With respect to the city, we have a city that just refuses to learn. And it goes well before George Floyd. There was a man named David Smith who was killed in a manner identical nearly to how George Floyd was killed. And the city was supposed to provide training to make sure that people like George never died in that same manner. And yet, 10 years later, we had one of the most horrific civil rights violations that the world's ever seen that should have been prevented. In the wake of George Floyd, no-knock warrants surfaced as an important issue that needed to be addressed. And the city of Minneapolis could have learned from the unlawful and horrific killing of Breonna Taylor and acted as if it did learn by saying it was going to limit its no-knock policies. Although in actuality, the way they presented it, if you look at the city's statements and the way it was marketed and advertised, you would have believed the city of Minneapolis banned no-knock warrants. And we found out, obviously, that that's not true. They're still allowing no-knock warrants, obviously, to occur. And, here you see the city say, well, there was an announcement. The police department says, they announced at the threshold, which is going to be a critical issue that will come up in our case. But you've all seen the videos. There's no announcement prior to entering that threshold. They barge in before they ever identify themselves, and they give Amir no time to save his own life. And that's something that we don't see white citizens encounter. And the fact that it's happening in Minneapolis again is beyond tragic. It's abhorrent. Our city has to do better. We continue to be known for these colossal civil rights failures. And so now the question is the city going to, hold itself accountable? And can we believe the city anymore when it says it's going to learn from its own mistakes and the well-publicized mistakes of others? And right now, I don't think that any of us can believe that. Any gun owner looks at this case and has to know that they could have been Amir Locke. But the fact that it's repeatedly Black Americans who end up in that situation makes us wonder, why isn't it any American? Why is it only Black Americans that we don't give a chance to live in these situations? So obviously we have a number of issues with how this was executed. The discovery in this matter is just starting. We have access to very, very limited information, but the information that all of us saw led this great team of lawyers to say we need to stand up and we need to fight for Amir and his family. So I want to introduce next attorney Tony Romanucci, who is one of the finest trial lawyers and people in America, and we're always so proud of the opportunity to work with him. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ben. And again, condolences should be first directed to the family of Amir Locke, to Karen and Andre. We are sorry that we have to be here again, having a press conference discussing an absolute disgusting violation of civil rights. Because what happened here, folks, is that Amir was doomed to die. Before the police officers walked in that door, he was going to die. He did not know that he was going to die, but because he was a lawful gun owner and he was of color, he was going to die. He didn't know it. Those police officers walked in pretextually knowing that if they saw a gun, they were going to kill. And the sad fact is that Amir was not named in the warrant. We've seen what's happened to Anjanette Young here in Chicago. We've seen what's happened to Breonna Taylor. She lost her life in the same manner that Amir did. And Jeanette was fortunate that she didn't lose her life. And that's because she was fully naked when the police walked in on a search warrant with the wrong address. That's why Anjanette is here today to speak. So clearly, the police officers here in this situation, this SWAT team, committed not one error, not two, but several violations of MPD policy. There is no doubt there were multiple violations here. What we see on the video is this. This is, make no mistake, a no-knock warrant. They keyed in and announced themselves after they crossed the threshold, while they were inside the apartment. This is the definition of no-knock. Their announcement. They didn't announce warrant. They didn't announce anyone's name. All they announced was that they were there executing a warrant, waking somebody out of sleep while lawfully possessing a gun. Now, we know that only mere seconds expired from after they walked in the door, announced. It was less than 7 seconds. 7 seconds, that's it. And Amir had no choice. He had no idea who was coming into his apartment, why they were coming in, because they failed to knock. They failed to announce themselves. Had they announced who they were and why they were there, this tragedy could have been averted. But because they executed in the manner in which they did, Amir was doomed to die. He had no chance. There was no other chance for him to live, to have a chance at life other than this. Now, Ben and Jeff both talked about, accountability and responsibility. And it's actually hurtful. It's very hurtful that we have to do this again, because we've done it before. We did it again. And now we're doing it again. When will the lessons be learned? And I'm fearful that there won't be lessons to be learned unless there's true accountability in a courtroom for this department that doesn't know how to get out of its own way in following its orders. So you'll be hearing from us more as we investigate this and as we digest the video that was just released today. And we will have more to report as we go forward. Ben or Kelly, I'm not sure who I'm turning it back to, if there are any questions or comments from Ben.
Thank you so much, Attorney Romanucci and Attorney Storms. Before I have Mr. Amir Locke, the father of Amir, address you as only a person who's known Amir his whole life can, I wanted to acknowledge the breaking news that just was released. The St. Paul police did not request a no-knock warrant in the Minneapolis Police Department raid that led to Amir Locke's death. And according to law enforcement sources quoted by the media there in Minneapolis, Minneapolis police insisted on the no-knock raid warrant. So we know that it was an event that happened in St. Paul, apparently, that they were how this warrant was issued. And apparently they asked for Minneapolis assistance, but did not ask them to do a no-knock warrant. Apparently St. Paul doesn't believe that was warranted because they didn't ask for it. However, as Attorney Storms and Attorney Romanucci said, Minneapolis has not learned the lesson of trying not to use the most intrusive measures when it comes to interactions with Black people. You can treat us like you treat white citizens. Try to be measured, try to be prudent, try to be reasonable, but don't make it a life or death situation with African Americans where you shoot first and ask questions later. We just keep seeing it over and over, and we tired. I got on the phone. I was so emotionally spent with Andre and Karen. We just tired of it. America, Minneapolis, we can do better. Now you're going to hear from Mr. Amir Locke, the father of Amir. Andre.
My son Amir was a good kid. My son Amir was an entrepreneur. My son Amir was a law-abiding citizen who did not have a criminal history. My son Amir was loved by many of us, by our family and many people, everyone that he came in touch with. My son Amir did what was right. He did all the things that he was supposed to do. My son Amir is the third oldest over 8 siblings altogether. Amir was a good kid. Amir enjoyed learning. He enjoyed he enjoyed learning and asking questions, and he enjoyed wanting to be a part of the music industry. He wanted to change lives. He wanted to help the youth. That was his plan. That was his goal. Amir did the right thing by getting his license to carry. My son was mentored. We come from a law enforcement family background. I have cousins that are sheriffs in Chicago. I have a cousin that's a federal law enforcement agent who worked with the CIA, with the Pentagon, and now with Homeland Security. He was Amir's mentor. Amir didn't deserve what happened. Amir was surprised. Amir, life was taken from him in an unjust way. My son was startled when that officer hit the couch to wake Amir up. Amir was a deep sleeper. I know this kid all his life, 22 years old. He was a deep sleeper. It takes a lot to wake him up. For them to kick the couch and startle him, this officer and those officers aggravated him, almost like they wanted him to reach for something. To take his life. Amir did what any law-abiding citizen, any reasonable law-abiding citizen would do to protect himself. Amir, we will not let this be swept under the rug. We want justice for our son, Amir Locke. And we will stand on this until we see justice for Amir.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. And as Mr. Locke said, the Minneapolis Gun Owners Caucus did issue that statement, and Kelly will release that to the public, to the press as well, at the conclusion of the press release. And Attorney Stomps, thank you for making sure we had the right gun association who released this statement this morning. Finally, we're going to have Amir's mother speak to you. And as we know, it has been often said, there is no stronger bond than the bond between a mother and a son. Now, Ms. Karen Wells and Andre Locke didn't ask for this, and so they're doing the best they can to talk about who their son was and give him a voice, because he has no voice anymore. And so we're going to hear from his mother, Ms. Karen Wells now. Ms. Karen.
Amir Locke was my second born, and I always refer to him as my baby boy. He was born on 11/11/99 with a head full of curly hair. Amir was very respectful. He was raised with morals and values. He respected law enforcement. We always made sure that both of our sons did what they needed to do whenever they encountered the police officers, because they also watched what was going on throughout this world to unarmed Black males. I was overjoyed with Amir as my son. I helped him purchase his business, LLC. He has a logo that caters to the youth. Amir was all about changing the world, changing and getting the youth everything that they needed, because he was still a youth. Amir was loved by all, hated by none. He was even part of Trayvon Martin protest, the march. He didn't deserve what happened to him. As Andre said, we know Amir was a deep sleeper. He wanted to purchase land. He wanted to be on the side with me to go into real estate. And we had plans in the next month or so. Yes. For me to move back home and start. He was gonna be doing music, very, very talented, yes. Starting to work with the youth. He was gonna build his brand. Yes. And my son was executed on 2/2/22. Yes. And now his dreams have been destroyed. But as his mother, yes, I will make sure that as long as I'm on this side of this world, yes, I'm going to fight, yes, every day, yes, throughout the day, 365 days, to make sure that Amir Locke, yes, gets justice, yes, for being executed, yes, by the MPD. Yes. My son didn't deserve it. Yes. The rest of the Black males in this city and across this nation didn't deserve it. Amen. Guess what? My son is going to be that face and that voice of those that can't speak. But we are going to make sure that we speak loudly for Amir. Yes. He will get justice. Amen. He will, yes, get justice.
Can I add one more thing?
Please. Thank you.
It was hurtful. It hurt deep to see my son executed, to see our son executed. But the part that struck me the most was that he never got a chance to see or to know who killed him. He was covered. He would sleep on his stomach. He never got a chance to get the cover from over his head. He was starved. And it took his life. He did what any reasonable, law-abiding citizen would do. White or Black,
Yeah. Yeah.
protect us.
Thank you all so much, Andre and Karen, for bearing your hearts. And again, our condolences, our deepest condolences, because it's tragic to lose a child. It's worse to lose a child to the people who swore an oath to protect and serve them. I know we have many media outlets on the at this press conference. So Kelly, if you could try to see if there are any questions. Attorney Storms, Attorney Romanucci, Andre, and Karen, we tried to cover as much as we can to hopefully answer a lot of your questions that you may have had.
Sure. And just a reminder, as we talked about at the beginning, please write your questions in the Q&A function on the screen. It helps us track who we've responded to and make sure that we get to as many as we can. So the first question comes from Henry Pan. This question is for the family. Who was Amir as a person and what will you miss most about him?
Amir, as a person, he was funny. He was what I enjoyed about Amir is that he enjoyed learning. So he was all about learning, and he wasn't that type of kid that felt like he knew everything. So he would always research everything. What I miss the most about Amir is that he was a protector of the family, and that he wanted to make a difference and won't have that opportunity to make that difference. That's what I miss about Amir, being able to talk to him and let him tell me what he was getting ready to do, the plans that he intended, and that we were working on to help him to reach his goals. What I miss about Amir is him telling me, don't worry, Dad, I'm gonna take care of you. Don't worry, Dad, I'll take care of all of the family. That's what I'm gonna miss.
Ms. Karen, anything to add about what you're gonna miss most about your son?
What I miss most about Amir, my baby boy, is his laugh, his beautiful smile.
Yes.
And we always FaceTime when we were away from each other. That's what I'm gonna miss. And just hearing his voice. We always ended our phone calls telling each other that we loved each other.
Yes.
I'm gonna miss just being able to see my son
Yes.
grow into a man. That's what I'm going to miss. I'm gonna miss the fact that he won't even get a chance to become a father and give us grandchildren.
Yes.
That's what I'm gonna miss.
Thank you. We're gonna try to take 3 or 4 more questions. Kelly?
Sure. For Jeff Storms, do we know if the police went to the right apartment? Was the owner of the flat the target of the warrant?
So, and I see there are going to be some other questions along a similar vein. You know, at this point, we're being given very little information. What's being reported is that they arrived at the intended place. But what's also been reported and seemingly confirmed by a number, and I think this is the most important part, what's been confirmed by a number of different sources from different law enforcement agencies, although they're speaking anonymously due to the ongoing investigation, is that Amir certainly was not the subject of this warrant. And to the best of our knowledge, it is not a warrant for the arrest or seizure of a person. This was a warrant for property, which makes it even more difficult to understand why they would execute such a high risk warrant with such an increased likelihood for death or other serious harm for property. So that's what we're willing to share right now at this point.
And if I may, Jeff, you know, this is the age-old problem that we face when police officers place, you know, property over people. There's no question that this was a raid that was executed incorrectly and against department orders. Clearly, they should have announced themselves before going in. And what we're asking for St. Paul and Minneapolis to do is to be transparent with us right now. Because if they do not participate, if they are not transparent, they will force us to then do what we need to do in order to obtain the information that we need in order to find the truth, as Ben earlier stated.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Next question, Kelly.
What was your reaction when you first saw the body camera video?
Is this for the parents?
It's not directed at anybody.
Attorney Storms, Attorney Romanucci, I want to try briefly, and then we'll have mom and dad if they want to chime in. First,
Oh, sure. I mean, I can certainly tell you that at first reaction, seeing the video, I already expressed myself. It's wrong. The way and the manner in which this was executed by the police was incorrect. Number one, no announcement. Number two, there was no knocking. Number three, the time lag in between, they had foot inside the apartment and they unleashed their weapons on Amir. Number four, they were looking at property. Number five, they failed to identify who they were targeting. Number six, they didn't have clearly a layout of the apartment knowing where anybody was. So that's why I go back to the doomed to die message here, because Amir had no chance because he was sleeping under a blanket, lawfully possessing a weapon. There was no chance here.
I just think of Breonna Taylor, and I think of her boyfriend Kenny, being awoken in the middle of the night or wee hours of the morning, and you try to defend yourself. That's why these no-knock warrants are so dangerous, and it's foreseeable that innocent people can and will be killed, like Amir Locke, like Breonna Taylor. And so I don't know what we can do as Black people in America to tell them that these no-knock warrants have deadly consequences for us. We don't see them executing these no-knock warrants against our white brothers and sisters. We think they are disproportionate against African Americans and people of color. And I don't want to, I mean, this is very emotional to a lot of us in the Black community. Andre or Ms. Karen, do you all have anything to add?
As his mother, to watch, I couldn't even watch after they got close to the sofa my son was on. I could not watch it. And when I finally was able to see parts of that video when they released it yesterday, a mother should never have to see her child executed in that type of manner. I gave birth to Amir, not Minneapolis. I did. And y'all took it.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if we can get to, I'm sorry, Mr. Locke.
When I saw the footage of my son, when they allowed us to see the footage of Amir, I had to be strong at the moment, but I was bleeding in the inside with disbelief, with anger, knowing and seeing that he didn't have a chance. He didn't have a chance. And just how my heart ripped out of my body. Out of my body to see his life taken from him. I knew in that moment that God covered my son. I knew that he was covered because he couldn't see anything. They took his life. And they had opportunity to de-escalate. They had opportunity to go about it a different way. to get it. They had a team over him already. They could have did anything different. They could have gave the command again. Once they seen the weapon, they could have given the command again. Amir didn't have the intent. Amir didn't have the opportunity, and Amir didn't have the ability to hurt anyone. He was covered, fully covered. Amir didn't have the intent to hurt those officers or anyone. Amir didn't have the opportunity because he was deeply asleep. And Amir didn't have the ability, once being awakened out of his sleep, with someone standing over here yelling and cursing, to protect himself.
Thank you, Andre. We're going to try to take 2 more questions. I will announce that there's going to be a press conference at 2 p.m. in person with Amir's parents and the rest of their family and Attorney Storms there in Minneapolis. Is it at City Hall, Attorney Storms?
It is.
So the questions we don't get to, we're gonna, if you want, you can send them in, or you can have press that cover that press conference as well. Kelly, do we have a few more questions?
Sure. For the family, could you tell us more about where Amir grew up, where he went to school, and more about his music?
Amir actually was born in Maplewood, Minnesota. And so basically they grew up, when they were growing up, we pretty much lived like in the suburbs of the Twin Cities. And like his father said, they were naturally talented when it came to the music. And he also played on the basketball team when he was middle school for Jimmy Lee.
And the football team.
And she went out for the football team at Como, but he ended up breaking his collarbone, so that didn't last. So he tried, but like we said, Amir he's loved. He had the smile, he was infectious, and my baby had a beautiful spirit.
While Amir growing up and his brother, and becoming a young man, having the conversations with Amir about give me a second. As an African-American male father and raising African-American young men, we have a different conversations with our son and with our children. Unlike white Americans, the conversation with our young men, it goes like this. Be safe, watch your surroundings. When you're driving, make sure that everything works on your vehicle so that you're not pulled over. If you are pulled over, be respectful to law enforcement. Live to see another day. Those are the conversations that we have with our children. There's a lot that I'd like to add, but I know I'm just so filled with deep hurt and emotion, and we're all over the place. And I know Karen is as well.
We can't even begin to understand because we haven't lost a child, so we can only sympathize with you, Andre. We are asked to take just two more questions, Kelly, and then we will get to other things that we have to do today.
How is the family feeling about the community's support?
What do you all think about the community already starting to rally and say that justice for Amir?
We are absolutely thankful. We're extremely thankful for all of the support and those that are marching, those that are speaking out, those that believe in justice, not just for Amir, but for everyone, every young male and young lady that has had their life taken. We're just extremely thankful, and we can't thank everyone enough.
Miss Karen, do you have anything to add?
I appreciate all the support that we're receiving. And I just want everybody to just continue to rally behind Amir Locke and make sure that our son gets justice.
Yes.
Keep his name out there, say his name, Amir Locke.
Amen. Amen. Kelly, last question.
Sure. Let's see. They want to know more about the your son's music. One here mentions about an organization.
Well, with the organization, he was independent. He was independent, and we hadn't gotten that far. So he was on his way to where his mother lives. He started his LLC here in Minneapolis, but he was on his way to Texas, to Dallas, Texas, to start things where his mother lived and to get things started there. Amir and I, we talked about that it would be better to leave Minneapolis, and this is what's so heartbreaking about it, is because he was just a week away from leaving to go back to Dallas, where his mom lives, and to get things started. So Amir talked about, what we talked about was him leaving Minneapolis and being able to set everything up in Dallas, that it would be a better start for him, and that they would be able to pick up on what he was doing musically a lot faster and through Dallas, and then, if so, then to come back to Minneapolis, and that they would appreciate the music that he was doing here in Minneapolis once he was on in a different place. So in regards to his music, he doesn't have a lot of music out at all. Amir spoke about the things that he saw in the community, what they're dealing with right now today. He speaks reality, and he just talked about everything that they're dealing with right now, and what was going on in the community. So I say about that. He's a hip hop artist, so he's going to speak about the realities of what's going on in the neighborhoods on which things are taking place.
So I know a lot of reporters have questions about scheduling interviews. If you reach out to press@bencrump.com, our legal team with the family will try to accommodate as many of your interview requests as possible, understanding that they have to deal with the medical examining, the funeral home and stuff they just never thought they would be dealing with. So we will try our best to see if we can do that. There's going to be a press conference at 2:00 at City Hall. I know everybody, Andre and Karen, they said that there was law enforcement in your family and that he was mentored by, I guess, your family member who was law enforcement. Do you want to speak about that just for a second before we conclude it? Because a lot of them are asking that question. And did any of those law enforcement have ties with Minneapolis Police Department?
None of them have ties to the Minneapolis Police Department. My cousin, his name is Reginald McClure, he works with the federal law enforcement, and he mentored Amir. He mentored many of us, telling us the right things to do, how to go about the law. Amir knew the law, so that was the most important thing. That's why he had to go about doing things the right way. And Amir also, he was working doing Lyft, doing DoorDash, and it's so much going on with carjackings in cities and everything, and the different things that he wanted to protect himself while doing DoorDash as well, to make sure that nothing happened to him. And so in regards to my cousin, Reginald McClure, and other family members, a host of family members from a military background and also law enforcement background, just encourage Amir to always do the right thing. And whenever he had any questions, he would seek out information from my cousin in regards to what to do, what the next steps were. So I'm extremely close to my cousin, and we discuss everything through religion and family, and also taking care of the family.
And
So-
Andre, you said there was some ties to Minneapolis Police Department?
No ties.
Oh, no tie. Okay. Wanted to clarify that. And then also you said that he was like millions of other young people in America doing DoorDash and Uber deliveries and so forth. And so he had a gun for protection while he was doing these. We know that can become highly foreseeable criminal activity when you do those jobs. And that's why he had he was armed.
Yes.
Okay. I will ask my most able brethren, co-counsels, if they have any last remarks before we end the press conference.
I don't, Ben. I think we're under investigation, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to let the press know about what we uncover as we investigate and we do a little bit more research and digging. Although we can fairly state that this is an unlawful, unjustified, needless, horrific death.
Thank you so much, Attorney Romanucci, and it is a real honor to have you fighting with us to get justice for Amir. Attorney Storms, Minnesota's own, Jeff Storms.
Just one thing I want to add, Ben, is, we've had the privilege to represent, both the Wright family and now the family of Amir. And each time I've had the opportunity to go with the family to see the video. And I feel like the eyes of the administration in Minneapolis look like the eyes of the administration in Brooklyn Center. They know what happened here was wrong. The question is whether or not they're going to be willing to admit it to the family and actually be held accountable.
Thank you, Attorney Storms. Again, we will keep you informed. Contact, send your request to press@bencrump.com. Please do not try to contact the family directly. They're dealing with a lot. I know Breonna Taylor's family and George Floyd family and others are reaching out to them to offer them words of support and encouragement, because they are now part of a fraternity that's growing way too fast. Black people killed unjustly by the people who are supposed to protect and serve them. So Breonna Taylor, Amir Locke, let's not have to have another innocent Black person killed because of the execution of an unnecessary, unjustifiable, no-knock warrant. Enough is enough. Thank you.